Welcome to BORAL Cement Waurn Ponds Site Induction Program. The health and safety of our employees, contractors and visitors to this site is of the utmost importance. This induction will set out the roles and responsibilities of all employees and contractors to this site. You must be aware of your responsibility to abide by all the necessary acts, regulations, codes of practice and BORAL policies that will apply to you whilst you are on this site. The word workers used in this induction is used to refer to all employees, contractors and subcontractors. Prior to workers commencing work for the first time, they must complete the relevant inductions and provide the site with relevant licences, tickets, permits, safe work method statements and other relevant documentation. All workers entering or leaving the site must swipe in and out using their personal access card. If you have any doubts or questions regarding your responsibilities, you must speak to the site manager or site supervisor before you take any further action. The key people, site contacts, are listed in this induction. You will be able to obtain their contact numbers through your BORAL supervisor, central control room or reception. They are Operations Manager, Maintenance Coordinator, Senior Process Engineer, Process Coordinator, the Packing Plant on 03 5240 6025 or Central Control 03 5240 2088. Site Security and Entry Protocol, Guidelines for Contractors and Visitors entering the site. When you have completed this induction, you will be issued with a site access card. Your induction is valid for 2 years from the induction date. You are required to swipe in and out each time you are on site. Your card must only be used by you. It must never be used to swipe another person in or out. Vehicle access will only be added to the card if it is absolutely necessary for your vehicle to be on site. Vehicles must only be brought on site to deliver or pick up equipment, and the vehicle then must leave the site and park in the designated car park. Only the person with vehicle access on their card may enter or exit the site in the vehicle. Any other persons must alight from the vehicle and enter or exit using their own access card via the turnstile. Please return your card when it is no longer required. Lost cards will be charged for at the current replacement cost. This card must be used responsibly. Misuse will result in a possible banning from the site. By watching this induction video, you are agreeing to the terms and conditions stated in this section.
Question 1. The site entry and exit rules require you to use your own in and out swipe card. True or false? Personal protective equipment, PPE. The minimum PPE required on this site is head protection, hard hat, eye protection, safety glasses, long sleeve high visibility shirt and trousers, foot protection, steel cap lace up boots, hand protection, gloves as required, hearing protection, ear muffs or earplugs as required. Other PPE may be required depending on the task being undertaken and as outlined in the relevant SWIMs for the job. Please ensure that you check your PPE daily to ensure that it is in good condition, fit for purpose, and as appropriate within inspection expiry dates. Question 2. What are the minimum PPE requirements at Waurn Ponds? A. Hard hat and safety glasses. B. Long sleeve high visibility shirt and trousers. C. Steel cap boots. D. All of the above. Where to find HSE related information? HSE information will be provided to you during induction and further training as determined during your induction. However, other procedures and information can be located as follows. The BORAL One Safety Management System and Cement's Environmental Management System is located on the BORAL intranet. BORAL Cement's document management library, known as WizBiz, contains both cement-specific and site-specific HSE documentation. Notice boards are a good source of safety information. Other queries should be directed to your supervisor or HSE advisor or HSE rep. BORAL policies. BORAL maintains 8 policy documents covering the following topics: diversity policy, working with respect, health and safety, media policy, code of corporate conduct, competition law policy, environmental policy, quality policy. All the above policies are located on BORAL's intranet site. Your facilitator will provide copies of the above policies and review those that will be applicable to you and your work on site. Question 3. How many policy documents are used and maintained by BORAL? A. None. B. 6. C. 8. D. 7. Traffic management. The interaction between people, mobile plant and other trucks and vehicles is a significant hazard at this site. The risk is managed by: all mobile plant and vehicles must give way to pedestrians. Obey all signs, including speed limits. Pedestrians stick to designated walkways where provided. Use of mobile phones is permitted only while standing stationary on designated walkways and is otherwise restricted to emergency use whilst in operational areas on site. Using a mobile phone is strictly prohibited whilst operating a mobile plant. If you are driving on site, seatbelt use is mandatory in all vehicles and mobile plant, including forklifts, cars and trucks. Question 4. In relation to traffic management on site, which of the following statements is incorrect? A. Use of a mobile phone while operating any mobile plant while on site is strictly prohibited. B. You must obey all roadway signs and speed limit signs. C. Pedestrians must remain on designated walkways while moving through the plant. D. Mobile phones can be used anywhere on site at any time. Emergency response. This site has an emergency response plan to deal with all foreseen emergencies. You need to make yourself familiar with the location of our emergency assembly points, emergency eye wash stations, first aid kits, emergency showers and spill kits. Immediately report any emergency to your BORAL supervisor or manager. Follow the directions of our wardens, first aiders and any emergency personnel during an actual emergency or drill. Fitness for work, alcohol and other drugs. You must present to site fit for work. You are legally required to ensure your actions don't threaten your or other people's health and safety, including being free from alcohol and other drugs. BORAL Cement conducts testing for alcohol and other drugs. The maximum level for alcohol is 0.05. The maximum level for drugs is as per the Australian standard. Rail workers and heavy vehicle drivers have their levels mandated by applicable laws. Rail legislation prescribes 0 for rail safety workers, and heavy vehicle operators are legislated at 0.00 BAC in Victoria. If you suspect you or someone else is unfit for work, discreetly contact your supervisor or HSE representative. BORAL offers support to employees who have an alcohol or other drug problem. For more information or to make a booking, call BEEP on 1300 BEAP. Fitness for work, fatigue. You must present to site fit for work. Fit for work also means being free from fatigue. BORAL Cement monitors rosters and hours work. Undertakes a risk assessment before anyone works greater than 12 hours. Prohibits anyone from working greater than 16 hours. Prohibits anyone working 13 consecutive days without a 24-hour break. Will provide a break of at least 10 hours for up to 14 hours consecutive work and 12 hours for work between 14 to 16 hours. Conducts fitness for work assessments. If you suspect you or someone else is unfit for work, discreetly contact your supervisor or HSE representative. Question 5. In regards to preparation for work, select the correct answer. A. You must present to site fit for work. B. Arrive on site intoxicated. C. Arrive at site in a fatigued state. D. All of the above. Hazard and near miss reporting. If you identify anything that could cause harm on site, or if you have witnessed or have been involved in a near miss, make the situation safe, if safe to do so, then advise your supervisor and record the issue in SiteSafe as a near miss incident.
Incident management. If an incident occurs, you must make the area safe, if safe to do so, arrange for treatment of any injured people, preserve the scene, notify the supervisor, assist in reporting the incident, assist with the investigation if requested, complete any assigned actions. Notifiable incidents. Management are responsible for reporting relevant incidents to the appropriate regulators.
Question 6. Who must you notify in the event of a hazard or incident? A. Supervisor. B. Workmate. C. Family member. Or D. Neighbour.
Risk management. Take 5 safe work method statements. You must identify hazards and assess risk before you start a job. A Take 5 is required for all jobs. Low risk tasks can continue. Medium or high risk tasks require a safe work method statement, also known as SWMS. SWMS are also required when the law requires you to do one, for new tasks, for when a high risk permit is required, or when a supervisor requires one. Discuss the risk assessment required for your work with your supervisor.
Question 7. In regards to managing risk on site, what are the 2 main tools used at BORAL to identify hazards and assess risk? A. Safe Work Method Statement, SWMS. B. Standard Operating Procedure, SOP. C. Take 5. D. Authority to Work Permit, ATW.
High risk permits. Confined space permit. Entry into any confined space. A work at heights permit. There is a risk of falling greater than 2 metres which cannot be controlled by physical barriers. Example, guardrail. Working with guards off permit unless the equipment is isolated. High risk crane permit. For any crane work, mobile crane, lifting over equipment or tandem lifts.
Electrical work, high voltage access or low voltage work conducted by non-embedded contractors. Hot work, welding, grinding, etc. outside of a designated hot work area. Excavation, digging and penetration. Digging, drilling, walls or floors. Hot materials and gases. Work that could expose someone to hot materials or gases unless an SOP has been developed. Question 8. Answer true or false. Does BORAL have a high-risk permit system in place to conduct high-risk activities? A. True. B. False.
Authority to work. BORAL also has an authority to work process. It applies to any work which requires a high-risk permit or management have deemed the work as potentially high risk and there is a potential for the work to interact or conflict with others. A safe work method statement may also determine the need for an authority to work permit. Authority to work permits coordinate 3 parties. 1. The service provider is the person or people doing the work. 2. The authorised work controller. This person coordinates the authority to work permit and supervises the work. 3. The authorised plant controller. This person is responsible for the day-to-day running of the area or site. All 3 parties have responsibilities and sign off on the authority to work permit. Discuss your work with your supervisor to determine if an authority to work permit is required.
Question 9. What initiates the authority to work process? A. Any work that requires a high-risk permit or that management deems it high risk. B. Where work tasks have the potential to impact on other work groups. C. SWMS may determine the need for an ATW. D. All of the above.
Significant hazards. The following is a list of significant hazards which may exist on the site. Plant and equipment, noise, automatic startup, hot parts crushing, cranes, dropped loads, mobile plant, heavy and light vehicle movements, noise and being struck by, heights, falling from height, dropped objects from heights, confined spaces, being moving parts, falls, gas, engulfed by materials or heat. Electricity, electric shock, burns or electrocution. Hot work, sparks, fire or explosion. Isolated work locations, wildlife or poor communication. Blasting, noise struck by materials, explosion. Hot materials and gases, internal and external burns. Rail movements, struck by or noise. Additional information and or training may be required to safely interact with these hazards.
Isolation. Isolation is used on-site as follows. Before any work which could expose someone to hazardous energy sources, for example electricity, hydraulics, pneumatics, or other stored energy systems, such work also requires a SWIMS or standard operating procedure. Red personal locks are issued by the work crew supervisor for use by the individual for isolation of energy sources. Additional training is provided to those who isolate or design isolations. Never remove another person's individual red lock. Site management has a process to safely remove an abandoned lock. Question 10. What colour lock is issued to a worker to perform a personal isolation? A. Yellow, B. Red, C. Blue, D. Green. Work at heights. Work at heights requirements on site include all scaffolding must comply with regulated Australian standards. Only people with national certification can erect scaffolds above 4 metres tall. Elevated work platforms greater than 11 metres can only be used by people who hold the National Recognised Competency TLILIC 508A. Use of crane-suspended workboxes requires authorisation by BORAL site management prior to undertaking the task.
Forklift work platforms are strictly prohibited. Two-legged ladders are not to be used for work, access only. A work at height permit is required where there is a risk of falling greater than 2 metres, which cannot be controlled by physical barriers, for example, guardrail. Working in a fall arrest configuration requires a nationally recognised competency, a work at heights permit, a rescue plan and standby person. Confined space. Entry into a confined space on site requires nationally recognised competencies, a risk assessment for the confined space, SWIMS or site standard operating procedure for the task. Confirmation that the atmosphere is safe, an authorised confined space entry permit and rescue plan, an appointed standby person or persons, isolation of energy sources and any required purging, atmospheric monitoring while the space is occupied.
Question 11. What conditions must be met to allow a worker to enter a confined space? A. Holding a nationally recognised competency certificate for confined space entry. B. Isolation of all energy sources and atmospheric testing and monitoring. C. An authorised confined space entry permit and rescue plan. D. All the above.
Electricity. This site has low and high voltage electricity. Requirements include all electrical equipment must be tagged and tested. All electrical work must be conducted by licensed and authorised electricians. Live electrical work is strictly prohibited on this site. More than one supply may exist, so electricians are reminded to test before you touch. Any electrical shock, no matter how small, must be reported to the site manager or their delegate and the injured person to be transferred to hospital for observation.
Question 12. Is working on live electrical equipment permitted on a BORAL site? A. Yes. B. No.
Rail safety. Rail is used on this site. Only trained and authorised persons may conduct work on or around rail. When moving around rail, keep a 4 metre clearance where possible. Walking on the rail head and or ballast presents a risk of slip, trip or fall. Where provided, use crossings, marked pathways, platforms, or overpass. Climbing between and riding on wagons is strictly prohibited. Only access the tops of wagons with provided gantries. Never climb ladders on the side of the wagon. Loading and unloading wagons requires a minimum of 2 people.
Question 13. Do you need to be authorised and trained to work on and around rail equipment? A. Yes. B. No.
Hazardous substances. Hazardous substances include things such as fuels, acids, pesticides, and the like. Where practicable, these substances are signposted on site. A full register of the substances is available upon request. Do not interact with hazardous substances unless you are authorised to do so. Safety data sheets, or SDSs, are freely available to those who may come in contact with a substance. Ask your supervisor for a copy. You are not permitted to bring hazardous substances to site without permission. Any approval is subject to you storing, transporting, and using the product in accordance with its SDS. Hazardous material. Hazardous materials include things such as asbestos, lead paint, and synthetic mineral fibre often found in insulation. Where practicable, these materials have been signposted. A full register of our hazardous materials and our management plan is available upon request. Work that involves cutting or drilling into walls requires an excavation, digging and penetration permit and a safe work method statement which should consider exposure to hazardous materials. You are not permitted to carry out work on hazardous materials, for example, drilling through asbestos, without the necessary licenses and written site permission. If you suspect you have discovered a hazardous material during your work, immediately stop and report it to your supervisor.
Question 14. Prior to the commencement of any work requiring cutting, drilling, or excavation into any surface, which permit must be completed and authorised? A. Height work permit. B. Working at height permit. C. Excavation, digging and penetration permit. D. High risk crane permit. BORAL prohibits the following items of plant and equipment across all work sites: 9-inch angle grinder, using hardened steel hammers on hardened steel, towing with high tensile or lifting chains, man boxes, cages on forklifts, explosive powered tools, does not include nail guns as an explosive charge is not used, permanently fixed blade knives, soft polyester slings. Question 15. Which one of the following is a prohibited item of plant and equipment? A. Soft polyester slings. B. Shovel. C. Mild steel hammer. D. Forklift. Safe Start Human Error Prevention. BORAL supports the Safe Start Human Error Prevention program that recognises the common cause of injuries resulting from state to error patterns and the potential for prevention through the use of the critical error reduction techniques.
Environmental management. BORAL Cement has an established environmental management system and associated protocols which primarily focus on zero harm to the environment, working with the local community and key stakeholders to enhance our social licence to operate, compliance with applicable environmental protection licences and relevant legislation, minimising dust on and off site, minimising our waste, minimising our energy use. If you witness an environmental hazard or incident, regardless of how small, you must immediately notify your supervisor. If you have an idea of how we can improve our environmental management, please share it with your supervisor. Zero harm to our environment. Whilst on site, your activities must not detrimentally harm our environment. If you are undertaking any work under an authority to work, you must be familiarised with the site's environmental protection licence conditions or other similar planning instruments to ensure that your activities do not contravene our legal obligations. BORAL's environmental policy requires the efficient use of energy, conservation of water, minimisation and recycling of wastes, prevention of pollution, and the effective use of virgin and recovered sources and supplemental materials.
Question 16. Any environmental hazards or incidents that are witnessed while on site must be notified when? A. Whenever convenient. B. On your next shift. C. Immediately. D. Never.
In conclusion, do you have any questions? If so, please see the person who started your induction. Please ensure you are provided with the site visitor induction handout. At the completion of this session, your facilitator will complete with your input the site induction checklist. Should you require any additional information, please contact your supervisor or your health and safety representative.